Hi, Stephen, and the wonderful Winnie Holzman. I'm Matt Neglia with Next Best Picture. It is such an honor to be speaking to both of you. First of all,
Thanks.
can't thank you enough. I've lived long enough to see this show multiple times on Broadway, listen to the album for over 20 years since it debuted, and I must confess, um, I couldn't be happier. This is everything I've ever wanted, truly, out of a
Thanks.
wicked adaptation for the big screen. So, congratulations to both of you, and thank you so much for bringing us into our lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions here because obviously, Stephen, you wrote the music and lyrics. Winnie, you wrote the original book for the musical. I want to first, kind of take that and figure out what was your involvement with the feature adaptation. Winnie, I know you worked on the screenplay. Stephen, I know that you obviously had a hand in working with John Powell for the score. Can you guys break it down for me, though, a little bit more beyond that, what your roles were?
You want to go first since you wrote the screenplay first?
I wrote the screenplay, and then when we teamed up with John, we were working off
With
of
John Chu.
with John Chu.
Yes.
We were working off of that screenplay and making it better and making it and John was, infusing it with John Chu-ness. And Stephen was there every second, I want to just say, and was very influential on the screenplay, hugely. And Mark Platt was as well. And
Mhm.
another writer, Dana Fox, who John brought in, was helpful. So it was very collaborative. But, it was this process of kind of John encouraging us to walk this interesting balance between staying true to the show and finding a real, cinematic version and
Mhm.
letting ourselves kind of go there. And I think that was really what the conversation was a lot at the time.
Yeah, I mean, just to back up a ways, the
Yeah.
show was produced by Universal Pictures, among other individual producers. Universal Pictures is a movie company. So we always knew that if the show was successful, it was going to be a movie.
Mhm.
And so Winnie and I have been talking about what should be in the movie since 2 weeks after the show opened. So we've been talking about
Right.
it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And when we would be together seeing a production in Mexico City or Finland or whatever, we'd be talking about, oh, when we do the movie, we should do this or that. And then it's been quite a long, thankfully long development process. So, and Winnie went through several drafts of the screenplay before John Chu, and then once John came in, and I basically worked on how to take the songs that were in the show and adjust them where needed for the demands of the story we were now telling in now two movies. In
Right.
the second movie, which we're not talking about today, there are a couple of new songs. The
Yeah.
first movie, there are some expansion in a couple of places of songs that existed. And yeah, then when we went into production, as the producer of the music with my music team, I did all the pre-recording, etc. So this is all by way of saying that, we've been around a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
I
it
mean,
really came into
yeah.
focus with John Chu, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Right.
That, he was this galvanizing force once he came in. And also, once he came in, there was a ticking clock. There became a real schedule. And as any creative person knows, or maybe any person knows, once you have a schedule and a deadline,
Deadline.
then there's a forward push and a forward momentum. And that's when things really kind of gelled and came together.
Yeah.
So, did John Chu come to you during Crazy Rich Asians or during after In the Heights came
No,
out?
it was just as In the Heights was about to come out.
Right.
We were, considering directors. I knew John very slightly from a television thing that we briefly worked on together, and that didn't wind up happening. But I really liked him and was very impressed with him at that time. And we, were very impressed with Crazy Rich Asians, his world building skills, where he managed to make in fact, Singapore looked like Oz. And then we had the opportunity to see pre-release In the Heights, and his skill with musical numbers was very evident. So yeah, we felt we were lucky to get him at that point in his career before he had outgrown us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was this wonderful quality where he talked about having seen Wicked in San Francisco,
Yeah, we tried out. Yeah.
our out of town tryout when he was like about 20 years old, and
Wow.
and the effect it had had on him. And there was this feeling of his you know, honestly, his real love, his genuine heartfelt love for the show. The show meant a lot to him personally, and I believe that that gets infused in the finished movies.
I think so too. I cried, I think 3 times watching the movie.
Everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
All the people I know who are seeing it are counting how many times did they cry.
I cried, there are expected moments where you cried, but I cried unexpectedly during What Is This Feeling? Because I had this moment, this feeling
That is
where,
unexpected.
well, it was that feeling of I can't believe this is real and that this is happening and that they're nailing it. And it was just like all clicking for me. And so for there to be such buildup and such anticipation for this and for it to be what it is, it's truly a blessing. And I think it's going to arrive at a time right now where people are going to really need that serotonin boost, and it's going to hit really, really nicely for everybody, I think.
From your mouth, Matt, as they say.
Yes.
Talk me through the conversations and the decision to split it into 2 parts. Who was involved? How did it go? Did you guys have any level of input on it?
A lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, we kept going back and forth about it. And Winnie, you can speak to this too. I mean, we didn't set out to say like, oh, let's make 2 movies, but we kept seeing that in order to get everything we wanted to do into one movie, it was going to be a very, very long movie. Or we were going to have to cut things, leave things out of the story, or slough over moments. And we actually talked about doing a very long movie with an actual built-in intermission, the way they used to in the, I guess, 1950s, et cetera, where a little green curtain would come down and everyone would go and get popcorn and come back. But ultimately, we started to consider the idea of just breaking it into 2 movies. John Chu was very much in favor of that, and Mark Platt, our producer.
Yeah.
It sort of happened organically.
It did.
And Winnie, you reminded me of this today about what Mark was saying when we weren't sure about should it be 2 movies or not.
Mark was wonderful because Mark Platt said the exact thing I wanted to hear. And he said that, look, let's try it. Let's do it this way. And if we look at it and we realize the second one doesn't really make a movie, it doesn't work to have the first movie end there, it's really not working. We will make it into one movie. We will find a way to make it into one movie. And I felt very reassured because then we had this, it wasn't set in stone. It was really artistically going to be driven artistically. Did this work? And honestly, John had so much confidence that he saw it and he said, yes, this is how I think we should do it. And that confidence, really, really affected me and made me a believer. And in fact, it was really there are 2, I'll just say, beautiful new songs that Stephen wrote for the second movie that really open up aspects of the plot and aspects of the characters and expand and explore more. And we just wouldn't have had time, for that.
Yeah.
It was all one movie.
Yeah, if we felt it wasn't going to work, or the first movie was going to feel incomplete somehow, and we had to put it all together, then we would have, but we would have lost a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, the thing that I appreciated so much as someone who loves this material so much was, wow, like this story has room to breathe. These performances have room to breathe, even down to the supporting roles that people care about so much.
Yes.
And so I love that nothing was drastically changed, taken away. It's all there. And I think fans are going to love that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And one of our mantras, which came from Mark Platt again, was that anything we put in had to feel additive. It couldn't just feel like padding. We really had to be doing what exactly what you said, Matt, trying to
deepen
the experience, get further into the characters, and just give it room to breathe, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because stage play, we are going at breakneck speed sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot to get in there.
Oh, yes. Now, when you're charting the course through the writing, and you're fitting all these songs in there, Winnie, how do you know for the cinematic adaptation when to take a break for there to be an insertion of dialogue or action? Because listening to like the soundtrack, the songs will obviously play the whole way through. And then in the movie, sometimes there are these breaks, these moments where it's like the song will pause for a brief sec, but then we get back to it. You know, how do you know where to find those moments?
Deep discussions, first of all, with Stephen on this. I mean, none of that was done like in my head all by myself. And then, oh, here it is. No, we would have these long, long conversations about, really the trajectory of each song. What are you going to see? What's going to happen?
What's the storytelling job contained within this song? And once that is arrived at, what of the storytelling is being told through dialogue? What is being told through singing? What is being told through score? What's being told through staging, where you don't have to say or sing anything, or close-ups. And then of course a lot of that emerged in development with John Chu, as we were, and his choreographer, Christopher Scott. We should give a little tip of the hat to him too, because he did a great job.
And I mean, it's funny because it's not that funny, but a lot of the most challenging moments were the moments that were most challenging to us when we were creating the show in the beginning.
Always, yeah.
So it was almost like deja vu all over again, and we were looking at each other like, I can't believe we're trying to do this again.
Still trying to solve this.
Exactly. Dancing through life, that whole sequence is, it's a lot of sequence.
Yes, it is.
We had to, and there's a lot of plot, there's a lot of everything, and we had to reimagine it. But in doing so, it was kind of exciting too. It was exciting because it's an opportunity to, like as Stephen was saying before, to show even more. And that was always the intention. Is like, why even do a movie? Part of the reason for us as the original artists, as the ones that created the whole thing, was can we make it even better? I don't like to say better, but richer. Is there a way we can enrich it?
I mean, look, there are just things you can't do on stage. I mean, it's true there are things that work really well on stage that don't work so well on film. But obviously, from the beginning, there were things that we wanted to do to tell the story, and we just couldn't really do them completely on stage. And we think we've been able to do them in the movie.
Well, like Elphaba as a child.
Yeah, that's something you always wanted to have. And Winnie kept saying, I want to see this little green girl, but you couldn't just hire a child actor for one scene. So we couldn't do it on stage.
Way back in the beginning. But so we couldn't do it for the stage play, but we knew we could do it, in the movies. So then the question was, how much are we going to do it? And and how is that exactly going to work? And this is a story that has a lot of exposition in the beginning, so we had to be very judicious of how much we use certain things. But that's where John was. Mark too.
They were very helpful editing. Yeah.
Well, at least you got the unnaturally green baby in both versions. So
I did. Well,
I commend
you
that.
have to do that, right? You can't not have the green baby.
John, say to us, if you cut that, I'm going to get killed on social media. So you have to have that in.
I think it's not a spoiler to now to say that I have a cameo in the movie. Winnie does too, but I have one line in the movie, and we almost cut that line. And then
Really?
John Chu wouldn't let us.
But also
And
Ariana.
Ariana told us that
Yeah,
Ariana said, if you cut that line, I'm quitting.
horrified because we're speaking as like fans of the musical. They were really horrified. So
Well, in my screening, for what it's worth, there were many applause-worthy moments, but people did applaud when they saw you on screen.
So I
So
get that. I guess they were right about that line. But the point we're making is that, we kept trying developing things, and let's try this, or what if we cut that? And we had collaborators in the form of our director and producer, but also our actors who really cared about the material, and all together we figured the shape of it out. I think we feel extremely lucky because I don't think this happens very often
no.
in live action movies, particularly, usually someone comes and they buy a property and they say, thank you very much, go away, we'll
Bye.
invite you to the premiere. That did not happen in this case.
Yeah.
And we really are grateful for how much collaboration we were allowed to experience in putting this movie together.
And you have this amazing dream cast. It's not just actors who are being hired because they're marquee names. They can sing, they can dance, they inhabit these characters so well for the big screen. Tell me what number in part one gave you the most goosebumps when you heard said actor perform it.
There were several goosebump moments, I have to say.
Mhm.
Cynthia doing "I'm Not That Girl."
Yes,
Um,
that was the second
that's
time
what
I
I
cried.
was going to say.
so gorgeous. And it's different than it is in the show. We slowed it
Mhm.
down. It's much more intimate. Just the richness of her voice. That's a goosebump moment for me. I have to say, Johnny Bailey dancing up a storm in
Crushed it.
Dancing Through Life. He just crushed it. So that's very exciting.
And Winnie, what about you? What was a song from the first film that when you heard an actor perform it, it just brought you to your knees?
Well, it's interesting. I think that that it's hard for me to just pick one or two moments because I think what I have to say in general is that the two women have just blown me away. I did always believe that they were perfect for the parts. I was very excited to have both of them. I feel like we just couldn't have gotten more blessed than to have both of them. But still, there's something about them on camera as artists and as people. I think they're just thrilling. What I've said before in my mind and to other people is you can really imagine that Cynthia Erivo could cast a spell on someone. And you can really imagine that Ariana Grande could appear in a bubble and float above a crowd and the crowd could be mesmerized. They're not ordinary actors. There's something about them that is just so perfect for this material. And
The other thing I would say that we kind of got lucky with because they weren't cast, together is that their extraordinary chemistry. That from the moment that they met one another, they just had this chemistry. We usually talk about chemistry in a male-female love story, but Wicked is in a way a love story. Not a sexual or romantic love, but a love story between these two women, and Ariana and Cynthia just have that chemistry together.
yeah, that's the part that just slays me, honestly.
Yeah.
It's what they're like together.
Well, Stephen, Winnie, as it's said in the show, happiness is what happens when all dreams come true, and my dream has come true with seeing
love
a
that you're
Wicked
quoting
adaptation
Stephen
for the big screen, at least with part one. And
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, I vowed to myself I wouldn't sing, but I will quote at least. Thank you.
Well, we like that.
Thank you
We
both of you
enjoyed
so
the
much.
post. So thank you. Thanks. Good to talk with you.
Bye.